Hi, so earlier today I was watching some of the live streaming of the libel case between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard from Fairfax, Virginia. Um, now this is a case I came across. I don't mean the libel side of it, but the fallout from these two around 2020, um, when there were claims being made against Johnny Depp over domestic violence claims, allegations. And he sued the Sun's reporter. I forget who it was now. He works for GB News more recently, but he took a case against the Sun for describing him as a wife beater. This has been an ongoing saga now for a few years. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, both actors. Johnny Depp is probably a much bigger name in the industry. Um, he's been around longer. He's older, and he's just the biggest star. I've only seen one Amber Heard film. I'm familiar with a few others. I've seen a lot of Johnny Depp films, and this is not to say that that's got any relevance to credibility. It's just, for anyone who doesn't know who they are. I think it's fair to say in probably throughout the 90s and 2000s, and probably a good bit of the 2010s, Johnny Depp was one of the biggest A-listers around. I don't think that's an exaggeration. Um, he would often be said in the same breath as Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. He had that sort of level of star power. So, as he described it during his testimony, during his hearings, it was like going from Cinderella to Quasimodo, as he put it. Um, Now, a few disclaimers to make here. Um, I like Johnny Depp as an actor. I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan. Um, so I'm not coming at this from a point of view of a fan. Um, I think the guy has talent, and I like some of his films. But this is something I'm always a little bit wary about regarding celebrity trials, which is that people who are fans of someone can sometimes be blinded. They can't really be objective because they're looking at it through the point of view of a fan rather than objectively as they would with a normal person who's on trial. But I have to say, with what I've seen of this case, um, my gut feeling is 70% swayed towards Johnny Depp. I mean, in favor of Johnny Depp. Um, I'm not going to say I think he's completely innocent. I'm not going to say, as a lot of people are, I hope he's exonerated. Um, my gut feeling is he's telling the truth, and I think there's very strong evidence supporting him. But the only reason that I never go to 100% with these things, I mean, you'd have to if you were on a jury or you were a lawyer, but the reason I never go to 100% is simply because I was not there. What's in the public domain, evidence and so on, um, is going to be known and it's going to be documented. But I really, really think that people need to be a little bit careful with celebrity cases. And I've always said that just because someone has a likable public persona, doesn't mean that there isn't another side to them. But having said that, in the case of Johnny Depp, I've been following this case kind of on and off. I just think the evidence in his favor is very strong, and it'll be interesting to see what sort of stand she takes. Uh, with this specific development, they were together. I don't know if they got separated or a formal divorce, but they also had a legal situation in Australia with their dogs and in a quarantine. There was a whole thing with that. Um, but the last few years has just been really turbulent. It's been a really big celebrity breakup story, and in terms of it's really become a thing of he said, she said. Now on her Instagram page, she's still sticking by her guns, so to speak, and She's saying that she loves Johnny and she hopes they can move on, but she wants to be a voice for every woman. And the whole basis of this, Johnny Depp has brought a libel case over an article she apparently, or an op-ed she put in the Washington Post, um, which his legal defense says was libelous against him. Now, in her Instagram post, she claims that she never named him directly, but was rather speaking up for women who've been through abuse. Thing about Amber Heard is a lot of people who've seen what I've seen will look at this with very raised eyebrows because they will say there has certainly been abuse in this relationship and it's been from Amber Heard. I'm thinking of a particular audio, and there's a few of them around. I mean, there's a lot of videos of today's hearings. Um, they're lengthy, so I'm not going to go into all the details. I didn't watch all of them, but I watched a good bit of them. But before I get to that audio, today's sort of body language, both parties were somber, serious. Johnny Depp was, recollecting the events. Um, And as you'd expect, it was very serious proceedings. These are serious allegations, and both parties are involving very big amounts of money. In the case of Johnny Depp, it's from lost earnings because after the accusations that she made, his career basically took a nosedive. I mentioned that he was an A-lister. Well, he lost probably, with his bankability, he lost tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. He was, immediately cancelled from the Fantastic Beasts sequel, I believe it was. And I think it was the last Pirates of the Caribbean film. There was one other big box office film he was cancelled from. Now, I remember reading about that and thinking, well, wait a second, he hasn't actually been found guilty of anything in a court of law at that point when they decide to cancel him. So this strikes me as symbolic of partly the Me Too era, but also this thing whereby people, well, when it comes to issues around domestic abuse or sexual assault, it does seem unquestionably men are not given the benefit of the doubt at all. You know, this odious phrase that emerged during Me Too, the issues here are more about domestic abuse as opposed to any sort of sexual abuse. But um, the that mantra, "believe all women," is just nonsense, and it would never, it should never hold up in a court of law because it implies, by definition, that all women tell the truth and all men they're accusing must therefore be lying. It's a ridiculous phrase, and it has no legal basis. It has no common sense basis. Some women lie. Um, I understand the premise behind it. Often you do get women who go through terrible things and they're not believed. Do have a situation where women speak up against powerful men, and this was kind of the gist of Amber Heard's Instagram message. Women speak up against powerful men, and they take a real risk in doing so. We've seen that in real life cases, certainly with Harvey Weinstein, um, and there's other examples. So I wouldn't totally dismiss that. I think there is a problem with uh, too often people are quick to dismiss women, but I also think in the last sort of 5 years, around this Me Too era, there's been the opposite direction of believe all women. And both attitudes are wrong headed in my view. Now, those audio tapes, they basically were audios of the arguments that had taken place. I think a lot of them were in Australia, in Melbourne. Um, but they're really, really revealing. Now, I'd like to know where they came from. And I actually asked this question in the comments thread. I asked that when they were posted in 2020. I haven't got a reply. That's a little bit strange. I do wonder, like, how was that leaked? Is it one of Johnny Depp's friends? Is it, I mean, how did someone get their hands on something like that? So I was a little bit wary of that. But as for the audio themselves, I'll put a link in the video. They really, really do raise questions about her credibility. because she's basically they're arguing over the nature of their arguments. They're debating over the nature of their arguments, and a lot of it is basically Amber Heard downplaying things, and her whole contention seems to be that Depp walks away. Um, Now his argument is he walks away to avoid things escalating and to avoid a violent situation developing. And when he puts it to her that she had physically attacked him numerous times, she doesn't even deny it in these audio hearings, these audio tapes, excuse me. She doesn't even deny it. Rather, she sort of downplays it, deflects, says that what they're arguing about has nothing to do with that. So she doesn't say, I never done anything of the sort. She downplays it. It's typical victim blaming that you get from abusers. I mean, violent men do this with women. It would be, she burnt the dinner or um, whatever it is. In the case of Amber Heard, she's very clearly disparaging Johnny Depp in these audio tapes. At one point, she says, "You're a baby." Now, I sincerely hope that they are admitted as evidence, as character evidence. And it's not to say that words in of themselves are the same as physical evidence, but I think they do weigh a lot in terms of character evidence. And the interesting thing is, if Heard knew this was being recorded because Depp had said that he would record their transactions, if she knew that, and this was what was on tape, it makes you wonder how bad was it when it wasn't on tape. Now, in court today, Depp said he had never struck a woman in his life, and that's why he's suing Amber Heard. Um, that is a very damaging thing to be leveled against a man. Well, there's several things that are very damaging. One, of course, is any notion that you're a rapist or anything to do with sexual assault is extremely damaging. But this is, I would say, is probably equally as damaging to be accused of being a violent man against a woman. Um, because the optics of that is very powerful. Whereas the optics of a violent woman just doesn't, especially someone like Amber Heard, who outwardly, I'm talking outwardly here, looks quite, like a feminine woman. She's not well built. He's, he's 20 years older. There's this issue with optics, but I really hope the jury are objective, and I really hope this is admitted. I'd like to know whoever posted this, how they got their hands on it. I did ask that question, they haven't responded. But regardless, unless it's been doctored, I don't think it has. It sounds like a very natural audio in the sense of it sounds like, a believable argument. It doesn't sound like the two people in the audio are not Depp and Heard. It sounds exactly like them. But I really, really hope that's admitted. As far as I know, neither of them have went into great details or touched on this at all. But I think, if I was suing someone for making false accusations against me, and there was something like this, if I were Johnny Depp's lawyers, I would be really pushing for that to be heard. And conversely, if I was her lawyers, I would be pushing for it not to be heard because it really doesn't present her in a good light. It will be interesting to see what she says when she takes a stand. There is sides to every story. It may be that there is some things that is out there in the public domain that people don't know about that she will reveal. I don't know. One thing that is hard to argue against is Johnny Depp had a physical injury in which she threw a bottle of vodka at him, an empty bottle of vodka, and I understand that it cut off the tip of his finger, and he went into quite graphic details about in. The courtroom was showing the injuries. And the thing is, this wasn't like a one off where she maybe pushed him once. With Amber Heard, it seems to be a long catalogue of physical and psychological abuse. That's how I would describe it. She physically struck him numerous times. She pushed him. She seemed to have had a wicked temper. Um, and psychological abuse because of the way she was constantly running him down. And his argument would be that he would always leave, so the situation didn't escalate, which is something he learned as a teenager. Apparently, his mother had been abusive to his father. She ended up taking her own life, but this has been he recounted this, and he said that I believe we've got that right. It was his mother who committed suicide, and his father had left. Now, when asked why did he not leave this abusive relationship, that was what he said, because Amber Heard had said that she was suicidal. She'd apparently physically followed him, begging to stay together, and he I guess didn't want to have that on his conscience that she might be suicidal. When he went to the doctor for his finger injury, he never divulged that she was responsible because, as he put it, he didn't want to get her into trouble. And this is the thing about abusive relationships. People who haven't been in them, and I've been fortunate, I've never been in that situation. I know people who have, quite close to me. I haven't spoken to them in great detail, but from what I do gather, this big thing about why do you not leave? I think if children are involved, you have to take some responsibility in that sense. But why do you not leave? Love is a very, very, very powerful thing. And you will make excuses for people, even if they're being abusive and manipulative. And it's nothing to do with being stupid or being weak or naive. It's just a very powerful thing. There was one point in the argument that really struck me where she said, "You never ever stand up for me." And when he asked her to clarify that, she had this bizarre logic that when they're arguing, he never tries to be the bigger person and comes to make the peace. He never does that. I imagine what her legal side is going to do is portray him as this violent man who had a drinking problem because he did resort to drink. And I think they're going to be, these lawyers are very, very smart people. They know how to manipulate emotional situations. Um, what's coming out, it appears, is he was driven to drink by the antics of this woman. Anyway, I'm going to round this up. I'll just say this. I imagine it's going to go on for a while. I'm not going to demonize Amber Heard, right? I don't like what I've heard. I don't trust her, but I am not going to say she's definitely a liar. She's definitely X, Y, and Z. There may be more to this, and maybe Johnny Depp. Um, maybe there is another side to him that people don't realize. My gut feeling uh, is swayed towards him though, and maybe I'll feel differently if I when I hear her side of this. Usually I don't like these sort of celebrity stories. I find them a bit vacuous, but there are serious implications here for issues around gender and domestic abuse. If Johnny Depp, if he prevails in this case, um, that will be a major, major victory for any man who's been in this situation. Now, he's a very famous man. What's it going to be like for guys who are, not famous? I suppose it's kind of a double-edged sword because, both sides have problems. On one side, ordinary guys aren't going to have legions of fans who will defend them. On the other hand, ordinary guys aren't going to have the sort of depth of reputational damage because they're not famous. Um, So, except among their circle, which is still devastating. This is not to downplay that, it's not to say people shouldn't take from this, oh, well, all women are liars. In fact, it's interesting. I've noticed a lot of women who've been in abusive relationships have defended Johnny Depp. And they've said, as a victim of abuse, I believe she's manipulative. They've come out and defended him, and they're not saying they're Johnny Depp fans. They're saying they, as victims of abuse, have been through this. But if it does go that way, I really hope it's a turning point, and I hope the attitude that Western society has to violent women changes. We need to stop. Violent women are far too often condoned. Um, I'm not going to say all feminists, but I do think feminists have kind of normalized ladette culture under the guise that it's, being obnoxious, being outspoken, being not outspoken. That's the wrong word, but just being violent is somehow. Oh well, the guys are, so they can be. It's just like it's a very toxic worldview. No, I'm not saying that every feminist has that attitude, and I'm not saying that every feminist will just automatically take our side. I think there's some who will. I think there are women out there who have a real blind spot, and they will automatically believe Amber Heard because she's a woman. And to be fair, there'll be some masculites who will automatically believe Johnny Depp because he's a man. My instinct isn't swaying towards Johnny Depp because he's a bloke. My instinct is swaying towards him because I think the evidence is strongly in his favour. Now, just to give another case where I didn't believe one party, Mel Gibson and his girlfriend, also audio tapes involved. In those, it was Mel Gibson who came across as in a very, very bad light, threatening and um, and he played in no contest. So right, I'll round this up, but there are major implications to this because certainly I was going to say they're both high profile. Amber Heard's fairly famous, but especially Johnny Depp. So it's kind of the celebrity trial of the year, so to speak, or case of the year. Um, and it'll be interesting to see how this develops, because there are real implications. And I hope, like I say, if Depp prevails, um, that it's a turning point for men, and men who are victims of this can get the justice they deserve. As an example, in the United Kingdom, unless I'm mistaken, there is one refuge centre for men who are fleeing domestic abuse situations, and there's many more for women, including one at the end of my street, which there should be, but it should be balanced, or at least, even if you say there's simply not as many cases of men being abused, at least men who are should have the resources. The police should be professional. They shouldn't look down at men in that position, and society should be more understanding. I also think that justice in this country needs to be a lot more balanced. I have seen so many cases of violent women who basically get a tap on the wrist, and they almost always get lighter sentences than men. Now, the legal establishment will say that's not the case, but there is so many um, cases where that's precisely what happens. Um, so many cases. There was a case a few years ago, Lavinia Woodward, the Oxford student who basically stabbed her boyfriend, not to death, but it was a physical injury, and she basically got exonerated by the judge on the grounds that she was a bright young lady who had a future in surgery of all things, and that you know attracted widespread controversy. So I do think that there is definitely a lot of judges in this country are lenient on violent women, and it isn't just women who are violent towards men, violent towards other women. There's been some terrible incidents of drunk women glassing other women, glassing men, using their high heels as a weapon. I say such thugettes belong in prison. I don't think there should be any soft touch with these people. Um, because if there is, it just sends out a green light that that sort of behavior is okay. I mean, drunk women are actually scary because people have this idea, well, they're physically not as strong as a man, but someone who's drunk and they have some sort of physical thing, whether it be a bottle or a high heeled shoe, and they've no inhibitions, they've no sense of control. That's quite a scary thing because they won't think twice about assaulting a total stranger. And people have had life changing injuries because some drunk thug or thugette cannot control themselves. And that's not disparaging people with drinking problems, it's disparaging people who are violent with drinking problems. I think a lot of them blame the alcohol. From what I gather from this information that is in the public domain, Johnny Depp was drinking because he was this situation was driving him to despair. That's what comes across. Now, like I say, when she testifies, maybe something else will come out. Maybe Johnny Depp isn't innocent. I don't know. I just don't know. I do know, or I would say that my feeling definitely, like most people who or observing this sways towards Johnny Depp, because some people, incidentally, I'll just touch on this briefly, have weighed into her body language. I wouldn't go too much into that. You know, if you're sitting in a courtroom for a long time and you know the camera's on you, there isn't really any expression you can make that people aren't going to weigh into. So I wouldn't judge her for that. I don't think that's. She looks somber, stoic, as you would expect. You know, if someone is talking about you and they're suing you for a lot of money, you're not going to look very happy. Um, but she wasn't going to sort of be too dramatic. I honestly wouldn't weigh into that. And when it's her turn, I imagine Depp is going to be pretty much similar. So honestly, I think people can read too much into that sort of thing. I don't. I think the only thing that matters is the evidence, not someone's body language. I think that's people need to be wary of that. Okay, I'll round this up. Let me know your thoughts, but my instinct definitely sways towards Johnny Depp.